This is probably going to be an unpopular opinion, but I am seeing it a little bit more and more, and I wanted to give my take on it. So as a runner, we are told to use carbs for fuel. And when I switched over to a more carnivore or low carb elimination diet in the last 100 days, I wondered how my running would go, if it would suffer, and these are my results. So initially, it was challenging, no doubt about that. I was very obviously more tired in the beginning when I switched over to a fat and protein diet as opposed to carb heavy, moderate protein, low fat. I became very much more moderate to high protein and definitely higher fat and very low carb, just based on what I was eating, which I'll go into in another video. But in the beginning, it was tough. It was a lot of fatigue, and every run for probably 8 weeks was tough. My legs were tired. I felt like I didn't have energy. And I wondered if I should just be adding the carbs back in when I ran, at least when I ran, so that I could use the glycogen and all the stuff that they tell you. And by the way, that theory and that method of carbo loading has only been around since the 1960s. Before that, it wasn't as much of a popular thing. So all these running coaches that are constantly, nutrition coaches for running, they're constantly saying to carb load, carb load, carb load. Well, that's not the only way you can fuel your runs, because I found out after 8 weeks that my body was no longer tired. It had enough to do long runs of over an hour and 20. I'm not a marathoner. I have done a half a few times, the half distance a few times, and I was surprised that I eventually got over that hump. It was a tough hump. It was not easy. And I think it all is due to being fat adapted. So that just means instead of going into your body for the glycogen, which comes from the carbs and the sugars, this is the easiest way I can explain it. Instead of using those for fuel, you end up using the fat stores for fuel. And I am pretty happy that it only took probably 8, maybe 10 weeks to get to feel like I was fat adapted. And there's no test to show that. But I found that my running no longer suffered. My heart rate is higher than I would expect. So I'm just waiting to see how that plays out. It is coming down little by little. That's the only thing that's really stopping me from improving at this point, is just getting that heart rate in the right zone. And that could just be my hormones, because it's that time in my life where I'm entering the perimenopause stage. So there's so many other factors that are going on. But also getting to the fat adapted, I dropped 20 pounds. So that's another key thing, is losing some of that weight. And in about, 90 to 100 days, I'm about at 20 pounds down sustainably. Like, I'm not gonna gain that back. I can tell that my body is actually happy here. So I'm continuing to work to get that down even more. But so what I wanted to say is that you don't have to use carbs to fuel your runs. You can get over the hump eventually, but it does take time to get fat adapted. And your body actually runs even better off the fat, which there's way more in storage in your body. Even if you're not overweight or have a lot of fat on your body, you still have a lot there that you can use, whether it's from food or just from the storage. And then there's the ketones as well. So I won't go into that, but you can always look that up too to see what ketones do. And yeah, I have gotten over the hump. I feel fat adapted. My running is no longer suffering. I haven't done a half distance, so that'll be the next stage. But there are many athletes now coming out and saying that they are not fueling their long distance runs or cycling rides, like the rides, with any carbs. Some are just doing salt and water, which electrolytes are important. That'll never go away. But you don't need the carbs to fuel the runs. It just takes time to adapt and get over it and let me know if you are fat adapted or if you're curious about it, and I can send you names of podcasts to listen to or even just articles, whatever.